Good morning, everybody, and we are really excited to have SharkFarmer in the house. Rob, Sharkey, and Emily are here. So we're gonna quiet down and get ready. His presentation today is Embrace the Bear. And he will be, he'll be good. So we're excited to have him here. And again, you just want to thank all the sponsors to be able to have him here. So today we have High Plains Equipment, Tronson Grain, Devils Lake Cars, and your Heartland Chevy dealers, First United Bank, Sendak Cooperative, Butler Machinery, Farmers Union Oil Company, Legacy Co-op, Leading Edge Equipment, and MJ McGuire Company. So we just want to thank all of our sponsors and able to bring Rob and Emily Sharkey here to the Lake region at this awesome event. So without further ado, we'll have Rob Sharkey.
All right, thank you. Set my stopwatch here so I don't go over. All right, thank you very much for having my wife in here today. Appreciate it. We've been very blessed the past few years to be able to go around the country speaking and sharing our story to people like ourselves, farmers and ranchers. So the crowd here today, I kind of want to get a feel of who we got. How many people are farmers? Raise your hand. Raise them high. Okay, so the majority of them. How about ranchers? Okay, did some of you raise your hand twice? It's okay. It's what we won't say. How about like ag professionals, business people? All right. Extension people? All right, very good. Okay, so yeah, talking mainly to farmers. Thank you again for having me. I am a 5th generation farmer from just outside of Bradford, Illinois. Please don't hold that against me. I'm well aware of the state that I live in. We don't even have a farm bureau anymore because we just are that screwed up. Politically, it's such a shame because if you would lop off the city of Chicago, the state would really be good. But we kind of get chained with that juggernaut up there. But if you get out of there, you get into rural Illinois, 90% of the people are going to be salt of the earth. The other 10%, well, you probably have 10% of that here too. Anybody want to point to somebody? I grew up on a farm. It was a hog farm. And I had 5 older sisters. So my parents literally just kept having kids until they got to a boy, because back then, only the boys came back to the farm. That's been fun to watch that change, but it is what it is. Back then, they only expected the boys to come back. So I always knew what I was expected to do. And that's all I ever really wanted to do. And yeah, I played professional football. That didn't work out. But to be a farmer, that was it. I was content with that. It's what I looked forward to. I met my wife when we were 16 years old at a 4-H dance. I went up, I asked her to dance. Wonderful. A Lady in Red, you remember that song back in the 90s? Romantic. After the dance, I hit her with the best pickup line you'll ever hear in your life. You want to hear it? I said, hey, you want to go see my show pig? Hello, 4-H. 10 minutes later, I was in the hog barn, put my hands at greater service. It's a joke. It's a 4-H, hands at greater. Y'all got to loosen up if you don't laugh at that one. That's funny. We both went down and got degrees from Southern Illinois University. And then when I graduated, I came right back to the farm. Dad needed help. I needed a job. That was always the thing. I was going to do something for a couple of years, and I never did. I went right back to the farm because that's the situation it was. I worked for my dad basically as a hired hand for a couple of years. But you know how it is. You're there. You're the 5th generation. You're the 4 generations before you that built that farm, made it better, made it bigger. Now it's my turn. I need to be doing this. You're in your early 20s and you think you got the world figured out. Dad raised hogs. We raised a lot of hogs, part of a sow co-op, and then we finished out hogs. So I knew how to do that. So I went out and I rented some buildings. I bought a bunch of feeder pigs, and I all of a sudden became a hog farmer, off on my own, ready to take over the world. That was the spring of 1998. Now, the fall of 1998 told a different story. I knew how to raise hogs. I did. I just didn't know how to market them. So I didn't. I didn't forward price anything. So here I was on the record lows, and now I'm trying to sell hogs that are ready to go. Anybody here in the hog business in 1998? You poor bastard. I feel for you. Do I make a barley joke now, or is it too soon? Okay, way too soon. Okay. So all of a sudden, right off the bat, I'm broke. I couldn't even sell the pig. I kept feeding them because in my mind, the market has to go up. It was down at $7, $8. We sold one load of potbelly, and I owed the trucker more than I got for the pigs. It was that bad. The joke was, well, if you want to get rid of some pigs, just load up a trailer, take them to the truck stop, and someone will steal them. I didn't know it was a joke, so I loaded up 10 pigs, went away for a couple hours. I came back, there was 20 on them. Right out of the cannon, we were broke. And I mean broke. I mean, there's debt and then there's broke. We didn't have anything. The operating note was tapped. Our credit cards were tapped. We didn't have anything. Now, I was newly married, and I wasn't telling my wife how bad it was. It really wasn't me being selfish. It was, I didn't want to put all that pressure on her because I knew what it was doing to me. I couldn't sleep. I mean, from the moment I woke up in the morning, all I thought about was how broke I was, how much I screwed up. So I didn't want to put that on her. Holy cow, I didn't realize there were people up there. Hey! North Dakota's full of surprises. We get a call from the bank. And this was the moment that I was fearing. I was truly fearing because it meant two things. I knew what the bank was going to tell me. I already knew it. And second, this was a moment that my wife, she was going to find out how much I screwed up. So we went to the bank. Now, I borrowed money from like the guy in the county, right? And got that every farmer borrowed from. He was the guy that was at meetings like this. He was, the good old boy. Everybody knew who he was. He'd been doing it forever. We go to the bank. They had just built a brand new building. Bank was doing fantastic. I walk in there. He's got this beautiful office, beautiful wood desk. We sit down. And right off the bat, he says, "You screwed up. My advice is you're young, file bankruptcy, and start again." This hit me like a ton of bricks. Because this is the guy. I figured he was going to say, yeah, you screwed up. Here's our options. A, B, C, what are we going to do? There was no option. File bankruptcy. This guy, he knew what he was doing. I could feel my wife sitting over there. I couldn't even look at her. We drive home. We do our usual thing when we get home. And about 10 o'clock that night, we start talking about it. Because this meant more than we were just not going to be farming. We were going to have to move. I was going to have to get a real job. This was going to change everything. We talked. From 10 p.m., we talked and we talked until 4 a.m. in the morning. And I remember looking over her and I remember thinking, she can't talk about this anymore. Mentally, physically, she cannot talk about this anymore. So I walked over to her, I took her hand. I'm like, look, we're not gonna be farmers anymore. But as long as we're together, it'll be okay. I've told this story a lot. I truly wish I could put into words how I felt. I'm a Christian, so I believe that was the moment that God reached down and just took all the weight off my shoulders. Nothing was fixed, but it was gonna be okay. We go to bed, get a couple hours sleep. How many people in here are married? Raise your hand. Okay, you ever woke up and you could sense that your spouse was staring at you? No, not in a good way. No, not that way. I roll over and she's shooting daggers at me. Good morning, pumpkin. She just goes, we're not filing bankruptcy. I didn't know what to say. The look she was giving me, I was not gonna argue with her. So I said, oh, okay. 9 o'clock came, I called the bank. I said, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we're gonna pay off this debt. We're not gonna file bankruptcy. Now, I've been called a lot of names in my life. We all have. But that banker, the established guy, he said, you're an idiot for doing this. Okay. I mean, that's not the worst name. But I'll never forget how bad that hurt when he said, you're an idiot for doing this. And it hurt because I believed him. This was the guy. This was the one that was supposed to help me through becoming a farmer. And he thinks I'm an idiot for going ahead and paying off this debt. Took 7 years. At the time, it was insurmountable. If I told you the amount today, you'd laugh and think it's probably a rounding error. But at the time, how do we pay off that much money? At one point, we were running 7 businesses out of our house. We're doing whatever we could. I was pressure washing at other hog farms, and we were doing whatever we could to try to make some money to pay off that debt. 7 years, we finally got it paid off. So if you were me, and you're at about, let's say, 6 years, 6 months, what would you do? You knew we were going to pay it off, but what would you do? Want to know what I did? I started rehearsing the speech I was going to give to that banker when we paid that note off. It's a hell of a speech too. I knew when I was going to pound the desk and all this stuff. Every morning I went through the hogs, I would give the speech. 3 months before we paid off that note, the guy died on me. How selfish can you be to not give me that one moment that I've been practicing for? But yeah, we did pay it off. Professionally, it's one of the things I'm most proud of today, that we went ahead and did that. Was not easy. The thing about 1998 is the rest of the hog business, they were in the same boat. So we owed money to some of the big corporations. I called them up. You're calling the front desk of whatever corporation. Hi, my name is Rob. I owe you this much money. I want to pay it off, but I don't have it. They were like, no problem. Give us something. $10 a month. Give us something. We'll work it out. Because they were getting bankruptcies left and right. One of the ways that we paid this off was that we started a whitetail deer out there. I had a buddy that was doing this. It was not done in our area. One of the businesses that were running out of our house, we ran a producer-owned buying cooperative. So I would talk with 70 area farmers. They would joke, oh, why don't you come shoot all the deer off my farm? Ha ha ha. I'm like, okay, let's try it out. This was in the late 90s. And in the late 90s, Illinois was the end all be all for deer hunting. If you were going to hunt whitetail deer The outdoor media said you had to go to Illinois. So I put an ad in the back of a magazine. Now, for younger people out there, a magazine, it's like an iPad, but it's made out of paper. Really cool. If you ever seen one? Yeah. We had the old answering machine, like the little cassettes. You remember those? And Emily and I, we went away for a day. We came back and that thing was full. Literally, just full of people wanting to come hunt. Didn't know anything about our farm. I thought, well, this is great. So I lined them up. What I didn't do is I didn't vet it. Man, we got some yahoos in there. In Illinois, we say, yeah, we got some people that were Iowa stupid. What do y'all say here? Illinois stupid. Everywhere I go, same damn answer. These hunters were out there, they weren't representing us well, and we knew this was not working. It came to a head one morning, I get a call, it's 4:00. Guy calls me and he says, because we were putting the hunters up in an old farmhouse about 2 miles away. He called me and he says, hey, my wife got me these new hunting boots. I can't quite get them on. Can you come over and help me? Let me repeat that. He called me 4:00 in the morning to get out of my warm bed, get in my cold truck, drive 2 miles and help him put his shoes on. This is back when we had flip phones. Remember those? I flipped it and threw it against the wall, all dramatic. And everyone's like, what's wrong with you? This is dumb. We've made a mistake. We got 4 hunters left to come. Once we're done with these guys, we'll just write this off. Well, the last 4 guys were what we thought was going to happen. They were great. They were responsible. They were mature. When they got done and they didn't shoot a deer, they said, hey, we want to come back next year. I said, I'm sorry. This is not for us. I told them why. 2 weeks later, they call and they said, hey, what if we bet the hunters for you? Will you try this one more year? Okay, we tried it. That was 26 years ago. Every hunter we have today, we can trace back to those 4 people. So here I was. You talk about a bearish market. I was as broke can be. This was terrifying to do. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't be standing here, I wouldn't be farming if I wasn't forced into doing this. The guys that come today are my best friends. They're all from Virginia, so we get tired of going to Virginia for weddings and graduations, but it's a lot of fun. One thing about being an outfitter is you get to use the satellite cameras. Any of you have those? They're fantastic. The poachers hate them though. The one I like the best is the gal up there in the upper right. Because when I saw that, it reminded me, you remember that Sasquatch picture where the thing was kind of like the Bud Light in her hand too. All right, SharkFarmer. There's no great story to it. I signed up for Twitter and my last name's Sharkey. I'm a farmer. So I thought, all right, let's say SharkFarmer. That's it. That's the story behind the name. What I didn't realize was that it was going to lead to thousands of emails about how I raise sharks in Illinois. I just had just a Twitter account. It was fun. Talk to farmers from around the country. And then on Christmas Day, my electricity went out. And it stayed out for a week. And back then, all I had was like a little generator. It could run the furnace, it could run the refrigerator, it could run my phone charger. That was about it. So I stayed and I babysat that generator for a week. Emily took the kids to her parents. You know how it is when you're in a tractor for like 16 hours and your mind starts going to really weird places and you start thinking things that no sane person should think? That's where I was for a week. So I started messaging the power company relentlessly. There's over 70 of these. I just kept doing it. And they are so dumb. I don't know if you can read it. The middle one, it says, so my dog needs an operation. I'm not saying this is entirely your fault, but she didn't need an operation when I had electricity. That's how dumb they were. That's how you trend on social media, by being an idiot that's hallucinating off fumes from a generator. It trended globally. Back then, when it wasn't broke up like it is today. So the whole world was seeing this trend. I went from like 500 followers to 10,000 in just a few days. And that's how we kind of kicked off the whole SharkFarmer thing. Now we had a hunter come in and she was doing a hunting podcast. And this was when I didn't even know what a podcast was. But the more she talked about it, she's here and, we're in hunt camp and all the guys are like, this is perfect. We'll just tell our hunting stories and the world will think it's amazing. So that's what we did. I started with 5 of them. I did 3 with the hunting stories and 2 where I just talked to farmers. The 2 that I talked to farmers just took off. The 3 where we told hunting stories were the worst 30 minutes of audio you'll ever hear in your life. If you weren't there and you didn't know, you don't get the inside jokes. It's what we violated people's ears with those podcasts. It was awful. Well, it didn't take me very long to figure out, you know what? We should probably pivot to agriculture. That's my true passion anyway. And we started SharkFarmer podcast. So who are we talking to? Well, our first big one that kind of took off was a guy by the name of Matt Chambers. He's from Audubon, Iowa. He messaged me and he's like, hey, my son was in an accident. I want to tell this story. Can we do an interview? Well, of course. What happened was his son worked for Pioneer, and I don't know if they do it here, but like in the I-States, they've got those little micro plots that Pioneer does, and they've got a group of people that goes from plot to plot. That's what he did. So he and his boss were driving from one plot to the other. His boss was driving. They come over a hill. They meet a 4-wheel drive deer articulating, and the tractor runs over the truck, killing the driver instantly. And Matt's son was left in a vegetative state for 2 years. So I interview him. I'm a farmer. I had no background in any of this stuff. Had to learn it as we went. The technical side. Matt poured his heart out for an hour. I went to put the podcast up. I don't know where it went. I lost it. Imagine that. Imagine having to call him and say, hey, what an idiot I am. I call him and he's like, oh, no problem. Because for the first time in 2 years, my son just said his first word. So completely different interview. The State Bank of Audubon, where he lived, like I said, this was when podcasts were new. Nobody knew how to listen to them. So the bank had a listening party where they had a little conference room. They had 30 seats, and they ended up playing it 3 times and had to go home. So there was more people wanting to listen to it. You imagine if this happened in your little hometown and the whole thing, the guy driving the tractor was the BTO. I mean, it was almost like a soap opera. It was so bad. Fran Fakis, now she was also from Iowa. She was working at a local co-op. She was 19 years old. She was interning. And you know how a young gal would be. She's trying to really, bust her buns and trying to impress all the old dudes and that. She had a messy bun. Y'all know what these are? Anybody got a messy bun? I don't know what they do. They take all their hair and they put it up here and they zip tie it or some damn thing. All the hair. Yeah, she's doing one back there. That's a messy bun. Well, Fran had one and she's trying to hustle and she was greasing a fertilizer truck and it was the old style that had the PTO underneath. Got her messy bun caught in that PTO. Took her scalp off from her ears up. I remember going, Fran, this is pretty graphic. You sure you want to talk about this? She's like, absolutely. I never want this to happen to anybody else. Chris Beaudry, he was the assistant coach for the Humboldt Broncos when they had that bus crash. They had a game and his farm was closer to the game, so he drove himself. He was home doing chores when his phone kept ringing. Finally picked it up and he said, been a wreck, you need to get here. So imagine pulling up to that scene. In that interview, he said, I had to identify every single person. And I remember going, Chris, how could they do that to you? How could they make you identify everybody? He's like, Rob, you don't get it. I was the only one left. One I don't have on here was the one we just did. And I was surprised because, we keep the metrics. We know the numbers of all this. It was the 5th most downloaded podcast of this year. And why I'm so surprised, it was a gal that has nothing to do with agriculture. But she was training to be on the SWAT team, and she got injured, and her pain was immense. And she got this little device that shoots an electric shock down her spine so she can manage it. What I was amazed at was the amount of farmers that messaged me asking about that. It made me realize, we're all old and beat up. Heck, half of us can't hardly move anymore because we've given our bodies to agriculture. But here, this gal was from Florida, practicing to be on a SWAT team, but yet she could relate to so many people in agriculture that are suffering with back pain. That one really surprised me. So check that with Drunken Cyborg. That's a name. I don't have that one up there. All right, we knew what we were doing. We knew the numbers, and we were beating terrestrial radio. We were getting calls from ag media companies, and they were like, hey, why don't you come talk to us? We'll work together. So Emily and I were like, great, we'll do that. Yeah, let me take a second here. My wife, Emily, she went from a homeschooling mom of 4 to someone that completely took over this media company. If it was just me, I'd still be telling stories with my hunters being an idiot. She's the one that turned this thing into a business. Now she's producing 2 television shows. She's producing 3 radio shows, the podcast. She does the booking. She's got a speech coming up later, but I would love to give her a plug, of course, because I'm sleeping with her and stuff. What I love is because what we do is a content beast. We need to talk with people from agriculture constantly. And there's so many stories out there. I know people out there say, oh, what I do isn't that exciting. Well, it is to people that aren't you. All y'all have a great story. And what I love to see is people surrounding my wife after a speech saying, hey, I got a story for you. And if you're going to do that, do it before her speech, because we got to take off literally when she's done to catch a flight. So anyway, that's a plug for my wife. So we go to these ag media companies, the big ones, and we're going through these buildings, gorgeous. We're walking down the hallways, and you know how outside people's office, they have the little placard that says their name and what they do? What we noticed was everybody was a vice president. Vice president of this, vice president of that. We'd leave and we go, what, we can beat these guys. They're so top heavy. At the time we had a laptop computer and a microphone. That's all we had. And we were already getting more listens than they were, and they knew it. They would say again and again, we want to work with you because you are an actual farmer. We think you being an actual farmer, you can beat the Hefty boys. How dumb are they? I didn't even really know who the Hefty brothers were at the time because they weren't in Illinois and I wasn't paying attention to them. But we heard that enough times that Emily reached out and got a meeting with them. And they said, okay, 2 weeks from today, we'll give you 10 minutes to Baltic, South Dakota. 8-hour drive. We didn't think anything of it. Threw the kids in the van, we drove out there. 10-minute meeting turned into a 2-hour meeting. And when we left, we had an XM radio show. The guy that owns Rural Radio, unfortunately passed away last year, Patrick Gosh, but he also owns RFD TV. And I had an idea for a TV show. I'm also a dude, which means I don't ever like to ask for things. I wanted to pitch this idea to him, and it was at the Egg PhD field days. And Patrick's sitting there at a table by himself looking at his phone. There's no greater opportunity to approach him and say, hey, I want to do this. And I just was standing there because I was too scared. And then I get this really sharp pain in my rib back here. And it was my wife stabbing me with a ballpoint pen, going, if you don't do this now, you're never going to do it. So I sat down, said, Mr. Gosh, my name is Rob Sharkey. I actually have a show on your XM station. I'll never forget. He goes, yeah, I know. I write your check. In 10 minutes, we had SharkFarmer TV. It was just, yeah, I love it. Let's do it. Then he goes, but let's not tell anybody. Let's get it set up first. I'm like, okay, mom's word. I won't tell a soul. Half hour later, we were doing our show at Ag PhD. So we, in front of 1,000 people, I'm interviewing Patrick. And within the first 30 seconds, he goes, yeah, and we're going to be doing a show with Rob coming up. That's when I started to figure out the TV business. So we got SharkFarmer TV. It starts with me in front of the green screen. We're doing videos, but most people, they comment on when we go to the streets of Nashville. Nashville's where the studio is, so we go down there. We go down to the strip and we interview just random people, man on the street interviews. We show them a picture of a combine. They have no idea. They think it's a UFO. The grain bins, that gets me. You show them pictures of grain bins, and they all see them, driving on the interstate and that. I said, what do you think they have in it? And it's always water. They think water, every once in a while, they think that's where they keep the milk, the whiskey, I don't know, but it's amazing how far removed. But what we've learned is that they ask so many questions. Yeah, they don't know anything about farming, but they want to. So I think that's a win for us. So what happens? People send in a video or a picture, and then that gets sent to the team of writers. The writers write up jokes, I tell the jokes, and then we put them on TV. The one problem in that scenario is that I can't afford writers. So it's up to me. You think it's easy? Here's the kicker. We have to be family friendly on RFD. So who has a family friendly joke for this? I wrote 27 of them. They let me use one. Want to hear it? This happens to a lot of combines after the age of 40. I told this in Arkansas, and there's an old boy standing in back, and he goes, after the age of 70. All right. So, pride. I do have a problem being prideful. I don't like to, I'm a dude, I'm a farmer. I don't like to ask for stuff. I think of more of myself than I should. And that's cost me a lot of things in the past. We get a call from PBS. And my first thought is, why would we ever talk to PBS? We got a show on Dish. Why PBS? Here's the thing. How many people, raise your hands, how many people at one time had Dish or Direct in your house? Raise your hands. Raise them high, keep them up at one time. All right, how many people still have it? People are canceling because you got Netflix, you got Hulu, you got all that stuff. When people take the dish off, what they find out is that they can put plug this thing into their TV that kind of looks like rabbit ears. They could put an antenna on their TV still. Anybody done this? Back in the day, right, you'd get ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, PBS, some religious channel, that's it, right? You do it today, you get 40, 50 channels. It's crazy how many channels are out there free just through your antenna. And people are doing that, and all of a sudden they're discovering PBS. So my wife, she's like, no, we're going to go talk to PBS because there's two people that you truly look up to in this world that have used PBS to make the world a better place. Y'all know these guys? I actually, I never watched either of their show, but I watched their biographies. These are two great men. I mean, Bob Ross, he looks like put his finger in a light socket and that, but he created, a half hour where people could feel like all of a sudden, yes, I can be creative and I don't have to be judged on that. And Mr. Rogers, he knew kids had a really bad time. He knew some kids were in a horrible situation and he wanted to create at least a half hour where they can escape and respirate. And both of them did it. Truly great men. I won't, usually sometimes we make you all say Mr. Rogers' neighborhood this beautiful day, but I don't see it from this crowd. So we had a shot of ag. That's on PBS. It's a lot of fun. What I've learned is that we talk farmerese too much. Our first show we ever did was about someone that had a PTO accident. And after the show, our producer came up and said, I don't get it. Because she thought PTO was paid time off. So I was like, how does that? So I'm like, okay, we need to explain this a lot better to the general public. You can watch this. It's on our local PBS, but it's also on Acres TV. This is absolutely free, by the way, Acres TV. So I'm not selling anything, but they got some good people on there. They're trying to be like the Netflix of ag. So you can download that. So I was planting corn, this is a few years ago, and it was late in the season. It was late, I think it was after midnight when I pulled into the field. And I put the planter down, and I go along the fence row, and then I turn, and I'm about 3/4 of the way back, finishing the end rows. And it dawns on me that my monitor is beeping at me. You know how it is, towards the end of the year, you don't pay attention because it beeps all damn day. But it dawned on me what it was beeping. It was beeping that my population was wrong. When I sat in that field, for some reason, I went from corn population to soybean population. So instead of planting corn at like 35,000 plants per acre, it was 140,000 plants per acre, which is not good. My first thought, again, had to do with my pride. It wasn't, I'm going to lose money on this. It was like, what are they going to say at John Deere? What are they going to say at Casey's about me screwing it? Because of course, it had to be on the busiest field. I'd be right on the highway, never fails. And then it kept raining that spring. Because in my mind, I would go in there, I'd rip it up and replant it. We got the crops in, it kept raining. So it just kept growing at 140. This is not the picture of it because I was too embarrassed to take a picture of it. Comes to harvest. I say it's 160. I start on the other side and I start picking toward it. And this field, it was the first field that I was harvesting that was going over. It was going to average 250. I'm like, well, isn't this a kick in the knee? Here I have finally going to have a field over 250. And I'm going to get to these last 16 rows and just going to bury it. I didn't separate those last 16 rows. But when I was picking them, I never saw the monitor go under 300. Where's the agronomist in this room? That shouldn't happen. There is absolutely no way that should happen, but it did. So what do you think I did next year? I didn't do it by the road, but I did about 1,000 feet where I put it, I think it was 100. I wouldn't even go 100, but it did what you would think. It grew like grass and it all fell over and didn't put on an ear. But every single morning I jumped on the 4-wheeler. I drove down to there and checked it because I was so excited. I was so excited about this maybe working again. What we do is different, right? We plant, spray, harvest, repeat. But you do that and you do kind of fall into a bit of a rut. This excited me. This had me going out there. I couldn't wait to go out there, see if it was putting on an ear. I think back to all the things maybe I wanted to try, but I was too embarrassed to. Again, I didn't put this by the road because I didn't want anybody making fun of me. we're kind of in a situation now where prices crap. Things maybe aren't as fun as they were. Pencils need to be a little sharper. I would hate to think that pride would get in the way of trying stuff that is new, because this is the only way that we succeed. If I had the pride, I wouldn't have done the outfitter. Like I said, I wouldn't be here today. And believe me, if you want to talk about being a prideful person, I know that's, you talk about sins, I'm like right there, pride. It's at least the one I'll admit to. All right. Emily and I have been able to speak throughout the country. I think we've done over 5,000 interviews. One thing that keeps coming again and again is about how do we deal with family and farm? Especially the whole succession, if you're going to give it over to the next generation. What we've come up with is, if you're thinking about this, talk to your attorneys, talk to your accountants. We're going to talk about the personal things, because I'm a farmer, 5th generation, took it over from my dad. My dad and I never had a conversation about me coming back to the farm. We never had a conversation about him retiring. We never, it sounds weird to say, but we never had that conversation. And that's where it needs to start, is a discussion. And it needs to be very simple. The kid, and we're just going to say kids and parents, right? Just let it be. The kid, they need to start with something very simple. I want to work on the farm. That sounds easy enough, right? We're all good with that. Parents, we want you to work on the farm. This sounds so easy, but do we in agriculture do it? I hope you do. My dad and I didn't. And if you do this, I want to work on the farm. What follows it? But well, we want you to come work on the farm, but there can't be any buts. This has to be a butless conversation. I know it's corny, but hopes and concerns. The kid, my hope is to come back. My concern is that we would be too much of a financial burden on the farm. Parents, what do you think about that? It's funny the amount of parents that get offended by that. Well, why would you think we couldn't handle you coming back? That's not what the kid's saying. The kid, this is actually very selfless of the kid that's coming back. They don't want to be a burden on them. They grew up on the farm. They know that not everything's always roses. So don't take offense when the kid says this. Parents, we hope you come back, but we are concerned that you'll be giving up your dreams because you feel an obligation to farm. Kids, youngins, punks, what do you think of that one? A lot of times they get upset about this. Well, my dream is to farm. The parents, and I've been on both sides, right? I didn't have that conversation with my dad. Now I'm trying to be better with my son who came back to the farm. I'm trying to be better at it. Trying. But yes, when we talked about him coming back to the farm, I didn't want him to feel like I was pressuring him to come back. That's what this is. The kid should not be offended by this at all. This is the parents actually wanting the kids to do exactly what they want. Kids, my hope is to come back and work towards someday taking over the farm. My concern is that I will be in my 50s before I have a say in any decisions. Parents, what do you think of that one? If you think this is ridiculous, then y'all need to look around your neighborhood. Because this is a very legit concern, and they know this concern is because they know agriculture. We interviewed a guy one time in his 70s. His dad passed away. He's 72. First time he ever wrote a farm check. First time he ever ordered seed. At 72. That's not how you transition the farm. Parents, we hope this will evolve into a partnership. Our concern is you don't fully realize how much hard work and heartache we've had to endure to keep this farm. Now kids they really get ticked at this one. It's like, what do you mean we don't get it? We grew up on a farm. We know how hard it is. Let me tell you a story. When my dad passed away, it's the first time I was farming completely on my own without his advice and that. And we ended up the year, corn was like 17%. And I have a 5,000 bushel wet bin. I'm like, we'll just keep it in there, 17, it'll be fine. And then like, we'll move it out in January or something. Well, July came and I was walking by the bin and I could smell something. I climb up to the top, I open the lid and my heart stopped. Looked like grass up there. I go down, there's a hopper bottom, pull it open, nothing. Not a kernel came out. I was having a heart attack and my daughter walks up at that moment and she goes, "Hey Dad, what's up?" "Oh, nothing." Just, having troubles with this bin. I wouldn't tell her. And the parents are not going to tell their kids. Like, kids think they know what it is. They know how tough it is. Until you go through it, you're not going to know. Kids, I hope to bring fresh ideas to the farm, but I'm concerned we will be met with, "That's the way we've always done it." Parents, is this true? You're lying if you're not nodding. We've all done this. My son, he came up with, he wanted to put up another shed. And I'm like, "Now we can fit everything in there because that's the way we've always done it." And he kept pestering me. I'm like, "Well, write it on paper. Show me that'll make money." And by God, he did it. The summer we put up a shed. So yeah, throw it back at the kid. Parents, our hope is that you'll come with new ideas. Our concern is that you take our hesitancy personally. We will be taking things slower because we have experienced failure. Yeah, I didn't want to put up a shed because I didn't want to pay that much money. Now you got to pay that off. This should be common sense to every parent and kid conversation. Here I am, the hypocrisy. I didn't do it with my dad. I didn't do it with my son. Advice for the kids. When you sit down and have this conversation, one thing you should remember is what you're entitled to. Okay? You grew up on that farm. You did chores on that farm. You helped on that farm. You can argue that that farm is in better shape because you grew up on it. You need to remember that. You need to remember what you're entitled to, because what you're entitled to is absolutely nothing. Not a thing. There's no law that says your parents have to allow you to come back. They can rent it to go down the street. Nothing says that you're supposed to come back. This is your parents. And if you're having this conversation with your parents, that's a great sign. That means they want to talk about it. So remember that you aren't entitled to anything. You like that one, parents? Is that good? Yeah, we got them. Little punks. That's great, because you're not going to like this one. Advice for the parents. You can never weaponize your farm against your kids. You can't do it. You get in an argument with your kid when you're working and you say, "Oh yeah, fine. You don't want to do this. I'm going to go rent it to the neighbor." Or fine. You don't really want to come back. We don't want you. You cannot do that. We gave a speech in Arizona one time, and there was a father and a son that decided to have this argument right in front of me for some reason. And the dad's looking at me. He's like, "I said that. I said, I'm going to go rent it to the neighbor." And you know what my son said? He didn't say anything. I said, "Of course not. You're fighting. You're arguing. What'd you expect? Your kid to go, 'Oh, I'm so sorry. I see what I did wrong.'" No. But is the kid going to be up that night? Is he going to be able to sleep? No. You can't weaponize the farm against the kids. All right. You ever hear somebody say, "Everybody thought I was crazy for doing that"? Ever hear that? You ever say that? Like you said, we've interviewed thousands of people. You know what I've learned when they're saying this? What they're saying is, I was scared at the time. I talked about my pride. Man, my pride has kept me from doing some stuff. This is a deer blind. where you can park your UTV underneath it. It's such a nice state thing to do. That's the ultimate in laziness and hunting. But we designed that with one of our advertisers, FBI Buildings. This is at the Farm Progress Show. And yeah, I know when you put something like this out, everybody's going, well, I don't need that to hunt deer. Yeah, I don't want to hear that. Here again, I'm letting my pride kind of get in my way. But I went ahead with this dream because I thought this was a good idea. This is at the Farm Progress Show, and this is my family. Pulled the youngest out of school. My daughter, she works at Indiana Soybeans. She came to the show just because we were launching this. And I'll never forget them saying, I'm proud of you. This is awesome. You should be really proud of this. And man, as a dad, whew, that's fantastic. I wouldn't have got that day with my kids if I would have been too scared to go out of my comfort zone. And again, pushed out of my comfort zone because I need to. I just raised corn and soybeans. I don't have the luxury of growing barley like y'all. Still too soon, huh? But you have to make ends meet. And I don't know if this will go or not, but was it worth it for this one day? Absolutely. I'll tell you what, that was fantastic. Sharks don't swim backwards. I don't know if you noticed on the shirt, the antlers. The antlers are actually sharks, and it's a design that my son made. So it's very, very important to us. My son passed away 2 years ago in a car wreck. So you can imagine what this means to me. It means everything. I don't know what your farm situation is like. I hope you all are doing fantastic. I hope you don't have fast boats up here. You have the Bearcats or whatever what are they? The snow bears? How many, y'all have snow bears? Farmers. I hope everything's going good. I know things are not as good as they were a few years ago. And that's where we need to, like the speech says, embrace the bear. I was pushed out of my comfort zone because I was broke to become that outfitter. That outfitter led into the podcast. That podcast led into the media company. And I truly do not believe I would be farming today without that, without being forced out of my comfort zone to do that. When I was going to start the outfitter, I was at my lowest, right? It was right after the hog crash. I was broke. We didn't have anything. I failed. I wasn't sure whether that outfitter was the thing to do. My dad came I was going through the hogs. My dad came in and he goes, hey, what's this outfitter thing your mom said you're gonna do? And I hadn't told my dad because I didn't want to tell my dad. My dad is probably like a lot of your dads, or probably like a lot of you. I'll give you an example. We had 2 hog farms. We had the home farm. We had one that was about 10 miles away. I took care of the home farm. He took care of the one that was 10 miles away. It was Sunday. He was going through chores and he was running late for church. So he lost 2 big hogs, full grown. And he left them because he had to get to church. So Monday comes. He's like, hey, I want you to come over and help me pull these pigs out. No problem, except that Sunday before, I was watching football with the boys and had a few too many. So I was really hurting that morning. I didn't want to tell them because, So we're getting over there and I was really sick. And it was hot, and thinking about pulling out dead hogs when it was that hot, I said, Dad, I'm really not feeling well. Do you think maybe you could pull one of the hogs out? In my mind, he'll go, oh, I'll pull them both out. I was ready for him to, be defensive. And he goes, oh, I didn't know you weren't feeling good. No problem. Yeah, I'll take care of it. He says, I tell you what, there's some, triactin in the glove box. Take a couple of those and maybe by the time we get there, it'll be okay. I was like, wow, thanks, Dad. I open the glove box. I'm like, what's triactin? Dad goes, triactin like a man. So my dad walks in and he goes, tell me about this outfitter. And my heart, it sank. Because I didn't want to tell him. Because I was at my low, I had no self-esteem. Everything I was touching was failing, and I did not want him to laugh at my idea. So I told him, he's looking down at the ground the whole time. When I get down, he looks up. And he goes, I don't get what you're doing. I don't get it. As my heart's starting to race. He then goes, but I'll help you. Man, that meant everything. It literally meant everything. I would have not tried that idea. If he would have laughed at it, I wouldn't have tried it. So now I farm with my son. And he's got a lot of stupid ideas. But when he brings them up, I remember my dad, and I remember that moment. And I don't laugh. And I say, all right, if you want to do this, I will try to help. Because if he fails at these ideas, that's a better lesson than I'm ever going to teach. But if he succeeds, guys, that's what it's all about. Thank you for having me and my wife here. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, okay. All right. I forgot to do something. All right. Leave the lights up, by the way. All right. So on the show, what we do is called a cold opening. So it kind of makes things seem more fresh. And we're going to do a cold opening. Who are we doing it with, Emily? Well, Lindsay. Where's Lindsay? Oh, hey. This is going to be fun. All right. So what we're going to do is Lindsay and I are going to do this. You guys will be in the background. And Lindsay's promised not to screw it up, okay? All right. Come on. All right. Okay, you ready? So which side of the room wants to be on TV? This side or this side? Oh, so overwhelmingly nobody. All right, you ready? Okay.
Yeah.
You don't seem positive
I
that you
didn't know
want
we were doing this in front of everybody.
to. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to welcome to SharkFarmer TV. And then you're going to go, tonight we're going to learn about agriculture and how our friends in cities don't understand what we do. That seems simple, right? We'll see how this goes. Welcome to SharkFarmer TV.
And tonight we're gonna learn about agriculture, how our, yeah, let's do that again.
What's your position at the extension again?
Extension agent.
All right, I think we got it. I think that's a wrap. All right, what I need from everybody back there is everybody go enjoy the show. And they did just as well as you did. All right, enjoy the show. All right, let's give her a round of applause.